Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, continuing on from where we left off, at this point we're pretty much entering into our third section of the final section of this course. So what that means is initially we covered letters, then we strung letters together to cover words, then we simply took two words together to create fragments. And then after that, we put together words and fragments to create sentences. And then we looked at particular types of words, which were verbs. And then now we're going to be moving on to our next section, which is sentence modifiers. Right? Sentence modifiers. So what exactly is a sentence modifier? Before we hop into that, it's important first, since it's been some time, let's just talk about the two types of sentences. So there's the fi'liya, which is a verbal sentence, so a sentence that begins with a verb. Then there's the ismiya, which is a sentence that begins with an ism. Those are the two types of sentences that we have covered. They are the basic foundational sentences. Now, what exactly is a sentence modifier? Now, a sentence modifier can be introduced into a sentence, and what it will do is that it will take the grammar and the meaning and it will modify it in some way. So let's take a look at an example. So a regular sentence would be, the book is new. What you have is three parts. You have the subject, which in Arabic is known as the mubtada, and that would be the book, so what you're talking about. You have is, which is the linking word between the subject and what is being said about the subject. And what is being said about the subject is called the predicate, which in Arabic is the khabar. Now, in Arabic this is al-kitabu jadidun, mubtada, khabar. Right? It means the book is new. Now let's say we want to introduce a sentence modifier. Now in this case, it would be inna. You can see here, one second. It would be inna. This is our sentence modifier. So what exactly is it doing? As we said, a sentence modifier is introduced to a sentence and it's going to impact the grammar and the meaning. So let's see how that manifests. In this case, the meaning now would be, for sure, the book is new. See, inna is introduced to remove any type of doubt there could be. Let's say perhaps somebody came across a book in a bookstore and they were wondering, well, is this used or is it not? And then someone said, inna al-kitaba jadidun. For sure this book is new. It removes any ounce of doubt that that book could be used or old or whatever the matter may be. So what does this look like in terms of a grammar breakdown? We have our amil, which is our sentence modifier. In this case, it's inna. Then we have the mubtada being targeted and being put into a state of nasb, right? That's our mubtada. And then the khabar remaining the same. So there's two things that happened. The amil, the sentence modifier, was introduced, and the mubtada was turned into a state of nasb, right? Grammatically, that's what's happening. Now, let's talk about our first actual sentence modifier. What we introduced you to before was simply just an overview of what sentence modifiers do in a simple example. Now, the first category of sentence modifiers we're going to look into is Ḥarf Mushabah bil Fa'il. And honestly, that name I know can be scary. For me, it took quite some time to remember, and it took some time to wrap my head around. But in simple terms, it just means the harf, which we had said before is a small word that has an impact on a noun. And it's simply a harf that resembles a verb, and we'll see exactly what that means. So it targets the mubtada and changes it into a state of nasb. See, it's very similar to a verb. What we had seen before with verbs is that a verb would target an ism that comes after it and put it into a state of nasb, right? This harf is doing that exact same thing. So it targets the mubtada and it turns it into a state of nasb. And it's not finished then. What it goes on to do is it targets mubtada yet again, and it will now be called, instead of mubtada, the ism of Ḥarf Mushabah. And it will do the same with the khabar. It targets the khabar, and no longer is the khabar called the khabar, it's called the khabar of Ḥarf Mushabah. Right? So there's three main things happening there. Targets the mubtada, changes into a state of nasb. And it also, when doing that, makes it now known as the ism of that particular Ḥarf Mushabah. And then it will also target the khabar, and it will change it into the khabar of that Ḥarf Mushabah. So let's take a look at what this looks like. These are the Ḥarf Mushabah that are commonly used, 8 of them, and it's inna, anna, ka'anna, bi'anna, li'anna, layta, la'alla, lakinna. Now, some of them are green and some of them are white. The ones that are in white are those that appear in the middle, and the ones that are green are those that generally appear in the beginning of a sentence. Now, the ones that appear in the middle we are not going to be studying in this course or reviewing at this time, but inshallah ta'ala in future courses it's something that we're going to cover in more detail. But right now we're just going to focus on the ones that come in the beginning, which is inna, layta, la'alla, and lakinna. Inna meaning for sure, used to remove any ounce of doubt. Layta, dealing with hypotheticals, meaning if only. La'alla, meaning perhaps. And lakinna, meaning however. Let's take a look at an example of each. So inna we had already seen before, so we're just going to review that one. We have our inna, which is our Ḥarf Mushabah, which is a type of sentence modifier. And it becomes innal kitaba, ba, right? Before it was kitabu, now it's kitaba because this is the mubtada. It targets it, makes it into a state of nasb, and it becomes the ism of inna. And now when it comes to the khabar, there is no change in terms of grammar. It is now just known as the khabar of inna, right? And it means for sure the book is new. When it comes to layta, it has the meaning of if only, right? We have layta now, which is our Ḥarf Mushabah. It targets the mubtada, turns it into the ism of layta, and makes it nasb. And then the khabar simply just becomes now known as the khabar of layta. Now we have la'alla, which means perhaps. And this is, once again, another Ḥarf Mushabah. Targets the mubtada, makes it nasb, now it's known as the ism of la'alla, and the khabar is known as the khabar of la'alla, and it brings the meaning, perhaps the book was new. And then our final one, which is lakinna, meaning however. Once again, same process. We have lakinna, which is our Ḥarf Mushabah, targets the mubtada, makes it the ism of lakinna, makes it nasb, and then the khabar simply is then renamed to the khabar of lakinna. And it means however, the book is new. Now, when it comes to these Ḥarf Mushabah, they can have a pronoun attached to them, just like the Ḥarf Jar that we had studied in the past. If you recall, let's say we look at a Ḥarf Jar like fi, it would be fihi, fihima, fihim, right? Fiha, fihima, fihun, fihinna. Now, in this case, it's the exact same, right? So it's innahu, for sure he, innahuma, for sure they, innahum, for sure they, innaha, for sure she, right? And so on. Now, one thing to keep in mind is when a pronoun is attached to a Ḥarf Mushabah, automatically the pronoun that's attached becomes its ism, right? So this innahu, the hu here, is automatically the ism of Ḥarf Mushabah, and then you'll see the khabar coming not too long after. So this is just a quick note to remember. This was a quick overview of the Ḥarf Mushabah bil fi'l. Inshallah ta'ala we will continue with the next session. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.